All right, welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Another fabulous edition of Talkback is underway. Okay, I'm done.
All right, off to the races.
See you
Next, we'll be selling micro machines on
I'm all
Talkback.
tuckered out now.
Okay, so what's going on?
Oh, we got lots of stuff to talk about. I've been cutting sections from the water trial closing because we didn't get to talk about that yet, really.
Right.
Just to give people some insight into that, I've got an interesting clip. I think it's important for especially Democrats who are big fans of health care or health insurance rates in Montana.
All right.
To listen to. I think it's an important one. Also, I have some clips from Rand Paul's speech yesterday. So
Cool.
A bevy of stuff, but only 30 minutes to do it. And I have important information to relay to you. Peter, the Cracker Jacks of today are not the same as the Cracker Jacks of yesteryear.
Well, what do you mean?
Well, maybe I'm misremembering, but when I was a kid, you still have yours. So Peter was kind enough to share me some of the Cracker Jacks he received. And we had some comments that maybe the toy wasn't up to par with the past. I'm
opening it right now.
I had some, and we shared it with my kids. And I dumped out the whole thing, and I counted the peanuts because I noticed after 3 or 4 bites,
You counted the peanuts?
I counted the peanuts. In a whole box of Cracker Jacks, I got 2 peanuts.
2 peanuts?
And one was only a half a peanut. Wow. So I don't know, but I was expecting caramel covered peanut goodness.
Okay, there's one peanut.
Okay, Peter's doing the test live.
I have 2 peanuts.
2 peanuts. Now he's already tied me, and he's only halfway through the box.
2.5 peanuts.
Okay, that barely counts. It's not even a half.
Whoa.
Oh, look at that cluster.
3, 4.
So here's the problem. Peter just siphoned off all my peanuts.
I have 6.5. Hold on. 7.5 peanuts.
Okay, so maybe it's not a universal issue. Oh, okay. Well, check out your marvelous prize there, Peter.
The prize. It says it's a surprise inside. Lift and peel right to open. So it's just a sticker.
Is it? So I got some baseball team sticker. I think it was the Giants.
See what I get here. I'm going to open it up. It says, okay, hold on. What does it say?
You win a water company.
It says the Dodgers have come back from 0-2 deficits to win a playoff series 4 times in franchise history. It's the L.A. Dodgers.
Woo.
Right there it is. I don't.
Well, there you go. Well, at least it's baseball themed, right? That's what you think of when you think of Cracker Jacks.
So there you go.
So you got, boy.
Now I have a mess here. And I'm waiting for a very distinguished...
welcome, distinguished guest, to our peanut-encrusted studio.
Crunch. Okay, so now we've got that out of the way, John. So
let's listen to some water trial.
Okay.
I've got 3 clips in the lineup.
Right.
I think the first one's important. It has to do with our local system and how the way that the city works with the fire department.
Right. Okay.
Particularly Chief Deal. Now, these are the closing statements from Joe Connor, who is representing the Mountain Water Company.
He's the gentleman with the southern accent.
That's right.
All right.
That's right.
Okay, should we do this?
Yes.
Here we go.
ISO. I think the city got tired of me talking about ISO. I won't spend too much time on it, Judge, but the fact is, it is an independent analysis of your fire and water supply based on the fact of their criteria and their rating classifications of 1 to 10, 10 being the worst, 1 being the best. And the relative rating of the fire department is a class 4. No question about that. With respect to the water supply, a class 1. And I was very careful, Your Honor, every time I do one of these with respect to the ISO, this isn't an indictment of Chief Deal and fire department. Not at all. It's just a reflection of what their classification says. Doesn't mean they can't go fight fires. But I think Chief Deal's testimony bears witness with respect to how the city operates. Chief Deal was a member of the advisory committee. This is the advisory committee that Carlisle asked to make sure it was formed. He said it was a means to engage and involve the community in the water utility. Positive experience, and learned that Mountain Water was taking steps to preserve the aquifer. Very positive. He testified that he had a good working relation with Mountain Water. He also testified, and I think this is interesting, the mayor had an investment banker from New York, he had Springstead from Minneapolis, he had Kogan from Spokane, Washington, he had, who else? There's several more, Your Honor, from other states. He didn't put the fire chief on his team. Didn't put the fire chief on his team. He's never been consulted by the city as to how they may operate this system if they own it. Never been consulted. When he did go to Mr. Bender for some help, and he asked Mr. Bender, is there any way that you could waive the pavement penalty so that we wouldn't have to pay that when we put fire hydrants in with mountain water? He said no and didn't give any explanation. Finally, with respect to him, Your Honor, his experience and this community's experience with the 1990 ladder truck that failed the UL inspection in June is telling. The city, based on this experience and others, typically runs to failure their equipment in the capital budgeting process. Chief Deal said for the past 4 years he's asked for funds in his capital budget to fund the replacement and plan for the funding of the replacement of this truck. He knew it had to be replaced. Denied, 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 denied. 4 years in a row. Then it fails, and what do they have to do? Well, if it's broke, we got to fix it. And they pass an emergency bond measure, almost $1 million, and they're fortunate to he's able to get a truck right off the line, and they were only out of service of that truck for about 6 to 8 weeks, which is a testimony to Chief Deal. To me, it's an indictment of the city in their capital budget process. That's what we have to look forward to under city ownership with the water system, Judge.
Wow.
I thought that was a pretty hot-hitting, on a couple accounts. First of all, we're talking about the fire department
Right.
not being included in an issue that directly involves water, and the hydrants that we use to defend ourselves from fire, which I don't know if anyone knows this, but Montana has a fire problem from time to time, like every summer.
Right.
So the issue with the city not coordinating with the fire department on when they lay their fire hydrants and offering them some kind of alleviation when they're paving the sidewalks next to where the fire hydrants go on is kind of interesting. I'd like to know more about that. But I think the big case, if you caught there at the end, the whole case for the city is that they're going to be able to take this money, reinvest it into the system to make sure the system works better. But if the city doesn't put any money into a system until it fails, like it did with the water truck, even though they were asked to put some money away for 4 years in a row,
right.
Then how much better off are you going to be? This is a city that appears to be playing catch up, not plan ahead.
Okay.
All right. Second cut.
Right, well,
we out of time?
We got to take a break.
Okay.
We're going to come right back. We do have special guests coming into the studio at 9 o'clock, the Montana World Affairs Council. We will continue with this. Now, many of you may not have heard that before because it happened early in the trial. And so we're going to come right back with more in a moment. This is Talk Back, and it's Wednesday. I don't know. Why can't they just, if it's pronounced Wednesday, why do they have to spell it Wednesday? I've never been understand that.
It's supposed to be Voden's Day.
Yeah, well, whatever. So tell me, what's the next cup we want to listen to on our cavalcade of mountain water?
Okay, I think I highlighted it as number 2.
Mm-hmm, right. Closing costs.
This is the cost of the city water system according to Connor, which, I don't know, I thought might be interesting for people to think about. Also, how those costs will affect the city of Missoula when they lose property tax value of the mountain water system.
Okay,
so.
Here we go. Okay, well, what's going on here? Let's try it again. Please stand by. All right.
Like you have a choice.
It's not letting me, so I'm just going to move it over here.
This happened to me while you were gone, too.
Oh, really? Oh.
No little consternation. Is it empty or something?
I don't know what's going on. It's telling me that there's a problem.
Oh, well, let's go to cut 3. I'll cut to the quick and tell you what he said.
Okay, all right, go ahead.
It's going to be $126,000, and that's the starting price. I think actually Park or
126 million.
Yes, sorry. Yes, I wish only 1,000.
Yeah.
And I think Liberty Utilities paid more than that, but that was basically the what they think the market price might be as low as, and that they had offered the city a kind of starting negotiation of around $120,000. And he goes off on that. It was kind of interesting to hear it break it out, but I guess we won't get there. Let's go ahead and just skip it, Peter, and go to cut 3.
Okay. Well, I'm trying to get something going here.
Nothing's working, huh?
Well, I'm getting. Well, those of you who are computer literate, I'm getting a window. See, when I did the other one a minute ago, played just great. So when I open this, there we go. I think we got it now. Here we go.
Finally, Your Honor, the city sewer is not world class. They ran from that after they saw our reports. Now Mr. Snyder's calling it competent. Their people are competent. You know the last, Star Sullivan, the last award that he received? It was in 2005. It's an exhibit. I'm sure he got that. That's a valid award. They don't have any awards from Mr. Sullivan past 2005. We have plenty. So what does it show? Jim Lloyd showed. Sure, these are all violations. And a violation's a violation. I'm sorry, Judge. I don't think I want my water system run by a chief administrative officer who thinks it's okay if we're going in a 25-mile-an-hour zone and we go 27. You can go 27 maybe in a wastewater system. When you go 27 in a water system, people die because they ingest it. That's why we don't have water quality violations. There's a difference. What this showed is not that they have a terrible system, but they don't learn from their mistakes. This isn't rocket science, Judge. These are reports they have to do all the time. It's all there. They systematically mess up. That's not world class. We're not saying it's terrible. It's not world class. It's not state class.
Oh, we could probably play the other one too if you'd like to. The costs? Okay, I'm sorry.
Well, what did you think about that? I thought that was interesting because it's basically comparing and contrasting the water management with the sewer management. Now, the city already runs the sewer.
Right.
And the next clip that we play, it'll talk about the costs and the way that the city treats you differently if you happen to live in a rural area that you maybe won't be able to vote for the city.
Here we go.
If you add the 40% gain on sale that Mr. Dove talked about and testified about, that's $18 million. And you add $27 million for the make-whole on the $52 million of private placement bonds, that's $126 million, Judge. And he did testify that, you know what, Roger, if the mayor wants to talk selling this individual system, $120 million will get the ball rolling. They didn't come with that. Mr. Dove was transparent with respect to that, Your Honor. But what does happen? The property taxes are gone. They're gone. 1.2 million, or I'm sorry. Yes, almost 1.2 million. They'll be phased out, they say, but if their bond covenants require it, they're gone from day one. So any savings that they say they're going to get from the park water and what they say they're going to do are just totally washed out by the loss of the local taxpayers. And that's not just to the city. It's to the schools and the county. The rate impact, Judge, at that $126 million number that we just cobbled together from the cross-examination of Mr. Dove, that's going to cause at least a 25 to 26% rate impact immediately. This analysis shows that, and that's from Mr. Perdue, who's the only bond expert that's testified here. This was an interesting. The sewer rates are subsidized by the commercial, and they're subsidized. The small guys pay the same as the big guys. That's discriminatory rate making, Judge, at its finest. On our flat rate customers, if they have more rooms, they pay more. If they have a bigger yard, they pay more for irrigation. The city doesn't do that. They could, but they don't. This shows what the average would be. The average usage in this little home for 6 months in our water system is $67, and it's $77 for the city. That's just an example, Judge, of what the city does today. Not only that, they discriminate against out of county or out of city folks when they hook up to their sewer. They charge them $950 to hook up, and they charge in-city residents $350. Again, another discrimination.
Wow. That's pretty compelling stuff.
So let's go over what he said real quick. First of all, impact on rates. The city didn't bring anyone to testify about rates because they're still planning to plan. The impact on rates, their expert says 25 to 26%.
Higher.
Okay. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
So just imagine whatever you're paying now and 25% more. That's basically their
just like that.
Case. Bam.
And that's before they start fixing anything, right? Any infrastructure or because they keep talking. Well, they made the city made a very big deal, because I used the cut yesterday talked about filling up Washington Grizzly Stadium with all the water leaked out of the system. 2.5 miles above, if they filled up Washington Grizzly Stadium, the amount of leaked water would go 2.5 miles up, okay, over 1 year. Now, you might say, well, that water is not going anywhere. It's going to go right back down into the aquifer. Yeah, it's been treated. I understand that. And they had to go through that expense. But nobody's coming and stealing the water. It's still there for us to get out of the ground again. So,
well, and here's the thing that the city is not saying to us.
All right.
But is coming through very loud and clear in court. The problem with the water leakage is most of the problem is from the little pipes that come off the main lines into our individual homes.
Okay.
Okay? That's private property, Peter. That belongs to you.
Right.
The city has mentioned many, many times that they can pass an ordinance to make you repair that if you happen to have one. They can pass an ordinance to meter every single house. Now, maybe this is new to everybody, but if you own something and someone makes you pay for it to fix it, there's going to be a cost. That's not being discussed. This is going to impact individual citizens that get water piped to their house from the main line, I think. They haven't really talked about it, so we don't know what the cost is. But it's either going to be probably an RD or an SID on the various individual homes, or maybe it'll be directly assessed. I don't know. But there's got to be some cost to fixing those individual systems, and the city's going to get away without having to pay for it because they're going to make us pay for it.
Well, we're going to pay for it anyway, John, in taxes or directly. One way or another, the citizen, the taxpayer, is going to pay for all of this. Okay?
Eventually.
Yeah, well, we're going to take a break. Come right back. If you have a comment or a question, I realize the trial is over. It ended yesterday or the day before yesterday. And now it's in the hands of the judge. Judge Townsend has given both sides 2 weeks to come up with their briefs, and then I'm assuming she'll make her decision. So I'm wondering if you have a guess as to which direction it's going to go. 721-1290 is our number. Remember, we have a guest coming in at 9, so we'll be shifting topics after that.
Thanks for calling KGVO.
Hey, it's Talkback, 721-1290. We went a little bit long in the last segment, so we have exactly 2 minutes before we have to take our hard break. Candy, go.
Yes, I ran as for mayor on the sewer treatment plant situation and the fraud in 2001. And it's been going on since then. The fraud hasn't changed. But the situation, and I have to support that Joe Connor for bringing up all those statistics and stuff like that, because it's true. And it's been a fraud ever since then. It's been a fraud before then. But the main thing that I am concerned about is that in 2001, I said I would not pay another sewer bill because of the fraud. And now the county is collecting sewer fees on our county taxes, and I don't think people realize that. And I don't know how a fee becomes a tax, so I'm really concerned.
May I ask you a question? Are you on city sewer?
Yes, I am.
You are. And so do you live in the county, but you're on city sewer?
No, I live right here in the city.
You live in the city, okay.
Uh-huh, and they have put on our county tax bill, it's set aside for the sewer treatment plant.
Oh, I see.
And it says fee. It says fee. And I don't remember them changing that to a tax, but it says fee. And I think people need to understand that if they are not paying their sewer taxes or sewer fees, that it's on the county tax roll. And the thing with Jason Deal and the fire truck, they didn't even try to put aside any money.
And with that,
for that
I'm so sorry. We're completely
that's okay, but I just want to let you know it's been a fraud forever.
Appreciate that. Thanks, Candy. Elena, I'm sorry. I wish we could get you on, but we have a guest coming in for the Montana World Affairs Council at 9, and we'll be right back after the top of the hour. Welcome, everybody. Welcome back. It is the Wednesday edition of Talkback, and hour number 2 is brought to you by Bitterroot Motors, the Mustard Seed Restaurant, Office Solutions and Services, Automotive Cutting Edge, and by Transport Equipment. Okay, we are shifting gears, and we're going into now our World Affairs Council on the radio mode, and it's a pleasure to welcome back into the studio Bob Seidenschwartz. Good morning, Bob.
Good morning, gentlemen. Good to see you again.
And a very distinguished guest. This is not the first time he's been with us, Dr. Abraham Kim. How are you, sir?
Pleasure to be here.
The Mansfield Center Director.
Yes.
And it's a pleasure to see you. So I know there's so much going on. You have a huge conference coming up at the end of the month. And so for those who haven't had a chance to meet you yet, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about the Mansfield Center?
Sure. I'm of course the director of the Mansfield Center on the campus of the University of Montana. And the purpose of our center is really twofold. One is to promote U.S.-Asia relations and people-to-people exchange, promote global education, as well as to help our state understand Asia better, and as well as introduce our state to the Asia region, both Northeast Asia and Southeast Asia. And the second mission is about leadership training, really in the spirit of Mike Mansfield, to help promote and encourage our next generations of leaders in public service, in the values and philosophies of Mike Mansfield, as well as really getting them to prepare to be a leader in our next generation of our global society.
So I guess my next question would be, why is this particular institution in little old Missoula, Montana? I realize the University of Montana, but why this particular institution for the Mansfield Center?
Sure, absolutely. The Senator Mansfield, as many of you know, was our distinguished senator that served many years and represented our state of Montana. And really,
some say he was the last real statesman that the Senate had. I mean, but that was a long time ago. I understand.
Yes.
But the meaning to me of a statesman is someone who does what is right.
Yes.
And not really depending too much. I realize he was a party man, like all politicians are, but he was able to rise above that when the need.
Absolutely.
arose.
You know, one of the things that we remember him most was he was the longest serving majority leader in our Senate during 1962 to 1977. And as most of you know in your U.S. history, that was some of the most turbulent times in our American democracy, where we were dealing with issues related to civil rights, Voting Rights Act, the Vietnam War. And he has been attributed to being one of the major statesmen that helped navigate our country through those turbulent times, bringing sides together of people of different views, different parties, to really have constructive dialogue, to cooperate and collaborate on these important issues that impact our democracy and move it forward. And so that's what we remember him for.
And Dr. Kim, that's actually a perfect segue into what we're attempting to do here with the Energy Conference.
Yes.
So
the Mansfield Center has an annual conference every year around springtime and in the fall too, on occasion. And this year we decided to take on the issue of energy, global energy. And as many of you know, reading the papers, energy is almost on our headlines every day. But what we wanted to do was to bring together leaders from really across our globe to look at what's going on globally in terms of the energy world. And not only people that are of one same viewpoint, but really people from across the spectrum,
right.
People from natural resource arena, people from the renewables, people from utilities, environmental community, and others, to bring them all together, have a constructive dialogue around these issues around energy and the future of energy.
Now, I was going to ask you, is there a specific goal, a stated goal for the conference from start to finish, hoping to end up at a certain point, or is it simply what comes out and the various conversations that go on, what you end up with is what you end up with?
Yes, really the two goals here are, one is public education. We wanted to bring world leaders. We wanted to bring the world to Montana, some of the leading thought leaders around these important issues related to energy, and to have them share about what's going on globally and also nationally and in Montana as well. And then and also to bring together our leaders from across our state together to have a constructive dialogue. And that's the second mission of this. I think a lot of times when we do have these conversations, it's really people with a certain viewpoint that get together and have a conversation. So it's like almost preaching to the choir.
Right.
But in this case, we are bringing all the choirs together and talking and having a dialogue together.
Hopefully you can find some, forgive the pun, hopefully you can find some harmony there, right?
We're hoping.
You bet. Okay, go ahead, John.
Yeah, I had a question for you about energy. Energy is one of those things, every country needs it, right? So it's kind of a unifying basis on that issue. But just watching California as opposed to Montana, for example, there's obviously a cultural difference in the way that we approach energy policy.
Sure.
And I was hoping you might be able to lay out some of the ways that American energy policy differs from some of the Asian countries that you'll be bringing up in dialogue with at this energy conference.
Well, that's one of the issues that we will be addressing at this conference, where we'll be bringing leaders from different countries, from Korea, from Japan, from Canada, from China, and as well as from other states, representatives from Colorado, Washington State, Maryland, and they will be talking about what's going on within their communities and within their countries and how they're dealing with these issues related to energy, environment, economic development.
Okay, we're going to take a quick break, and Catherine is waiting to visit. We also have two lines open. Dr. Abraham Kim, the director of the Mansfield Center, here with us to talk about this conference that's coming up, and we're just getting started, haven't even scratched the surface yet. If you have a question or a comment, feel free to give us a call at 721-1290, and we'll be right back. Hey, we're back on Talkback, and not to beat the harmony thing to death, but listen to the music. Sounded like a pretty good way to go.
Peter, you've been on a roll here recently with some of your puns.
I know. 721-1290 is our number, 1-800-568-5309. Go ahead, John.
Well, I thought Bob had a really interesting answer to my question off air. I thought you might have an opportunity to give it. And keep in mind, a lot of the Asian countries are much smaller in landmass, obviously, China being a big exception, but and tend to have centralized policies on energy. Right. But yeah,
I just said, and this will be a part of the discussion in the conference, is that with several of the Asian countries and in general, energy-producing countries, consumers and producers tend to be somewhat centralized in their policies. The United States is actually going through a pretty dramatic decentralization, and a lot of this is taking place because of alternative energy growth. And the fact that you as an individual are now in some cases actually able to provide your own energy by using solar or other alternatives. So this, from my perspective, is a strength of the United States. It is not as harmonious. It's more disruptive, but I believe in the long run, that's really what distinguishes us between the U.S. and other producers.
Dr. Kim?
Yes, I agree. I mean, that's all going to be a part of the conversation. Yeah. And I encourage your listeners to check out our website for the conference, mansfieldconference.org, to take a look at who our speakers are, as well as the various panelists that we'll be having. I think as you look at our agenda, you'll see that we are covering a wide breadth of issues, everything from renewables such as solar and wind, over to nuclear as well, which is important to our global conversation related to energy. But of course, over to natural resources such as oil, gas, coal, and issues related to federal and government, state government relations, and that important nexus in environmental policy and also climate change.
Dr. Kim, could you go also back to when we started talking about this? One of the real driving principles was, how do we, in effect, benefit the state of Montana? How do we help its citizens provide insight opportunities for our students going forward? Because that was one of the driving forces behind kind of the origins of this conference too.
Absolutely. As a part of the Mansfield Center's mission is to expose our students and our university community to some of the big picture thinkers around the world and bring them to Montana. Unfortunately, some of our students don't have that opportunity to go abroad. So we try to bring the world here and get them involved in the process of not only the planning, but also in the execution of the conference, but also in engaging and interacting with our speakers, our experts. And in that process, we're hoping not only to expose them to these issues, but through this process to inspire a few of them to go on and do bigger things.
Well, and there's a very important point in that, too, when we're talking about our students and our populace. The Mansfield Center and the council, we are fiercely nonpartisan. What we're attempting to do is not promote an agenda. we're trying to bring people of different viewpoints and thoughts together so that people have a wide berth of ideas and concepts. So that's another important part of what we attempted to do here, correct?
No, absolutely. And our goal is to really bring, as you say, bring together people of different views together. And inevitably in that process, we will anger a few people.
We'll have a little controversy, no doubt.
And there will be sparks,
Right.
of course.
All right, let's get to the phone because all three, we have 2 lines that are full right now. Let's get Catherine on. Catherine, you're on with Dr. Kim. Go ahead.
Good morning, Dr. Kim.
Good morning.
You listed some of the countries, and I'm assuming that those were our public representatives, representatives of the governmental organizations that are involved in this. Do you have any private companies or energy companies that are going to be part of this? And if so, can you list them? The alternative energies, such as thorium molten salt reactors, that's something I'm interested in. Are you going to discuss that? And the format, you have seminars and roundtables and or just lectures? And is there going to be time for public input to these seminars, lectures, and roundtables?
Okay, thanks, Catherine.
No, thank you for that question. Yes, we are going to have a lot of different companies represented on really all aspects of this. Of course, from the energy side, we will have Northwestern Energy. We'll have our co-ops. From our natural resource side, we will have some of our coal companies.
Cloud Peak will be
participating. We will have some of our also in terms of transportation, Montana Rail, BNSF representatives will be there from there. From the wind and renewables, from the wind, Absaroka Energy. We'll also have state people on environmental community. Some of them are actually moderating some of our conversations, such as the MEIC, I think Montana Environmental Information.
Yeah,
yes,
right.
And also in terms of the format of the program, it will be a mixture. There'll be general sessions with big sessions where everyone will get together and have conversations. And then there will be breakout sessions. We have 20 breakout sessions looking at different individual topics such as solar or wind or federal policies and things like that. And
okay, here is what I have been getting from people ever since the first story about this, about a couple months ago when you were kind enough to visit with me about it. And what I've been getting from people is, okay, here we go again. It's going to be on the University of Montana campus. That means that coal is bad, oil is bad, gasoline is bad, diesel is bad, the wind is good, solar is good, and so that's going to be the gist of the program. Now, I wanted to bring that to you as an extant criticism that is out there, even though the conference hasn't even happened yet. That is the presupposition. So, how would you address that?
Well, how I address that is that the purpose of this conversation is not to promote a particular agenda. This is not an industry conference, and this is not an environmental conference. This is an academic conference where we're bringing all the different sides together. And as I mentioned, in terms of the different companies that will be represented and the people that will be, these leaders will be there to speak from their perspective. And there will be people from other perspectives that will address these issues, and they may not necessarily agree. So the panels are designed so that people can engage in this conversation from different spectrums. And, we actually have an evening program. It's entitled The Delicate Balance Between Energy and Economic Development. Is there a rational middle?
Wow.
And so, in fact, Bob Seidenschwartz will be moderating that.
Wow.
And so we have representatives from across the spectrum that will be coming together. And the focus of that whole evening conversation is around this issue related to, can we have a constructive dialogue around these issues in the state of Montana?
Now, this is talk back. People get heated,
Sure.
throw their opinions out on the airwaves, and then hang up. So I want to know, is there anything similar to Big Green versus Big Oil at this conference? Will we see that discussion? The big environmentalists versus the energy producers talking about the issues directly?
Well, that will be Bob's panel.
This is going to be part of the panel. Look, the reality is you can't wake up in the morning without somebody disagreeing with you about something. Usually your spouse or significant other. So
We don't need to go there, Bob.
right, but taking it just from that perspective, We will do our best to present information. And what happens in terms of who asks questions, how the public responds, all we ask for is respect and consideration and civility in regards to the conversation. We want to hear everybody's perspective, their concerns, their thoughts, because that's the purpose of the conference. And if not now, when do we do something like this?
We're going to take a break. Come right back, Marilyn. We'll get your call on in a moment. We have two lines open. Dr. Abraham Kim, Bob Seidenschwartz, the Montana World Affairs Council on the radio continues in a moment. Hey, this is Talk Back, and it's Wednesday. It's the Montana World Affairs Council on the radio. Dr. Abraham Kim joining us, of course, along with Bob Seidenschwartz. Let's get right back to the phones. And Marilyn's been waiting the longest. Marilyn, thank you for your patience. You're on. Go ahead.
Good morning. Thank you. Okay, so has the left changed its mindset on building nuclear for America? They've denied us of that for many, many, many years, and yet with these Iran talks, Iran's wants nuclear supposedly for energy, so the Prez wants to give it to them. And the left, I've heard no complaints, none. And if it's for energy for Iran, why wasn't the left asking the president to push solar and wind?
That is a very interesting concept. The fact that you brought that up, Marilyn, is I have not heard one single environmental argument about nuclear energy in Iran as if it's okay if they have an accident. Maybe, I don't know. You see what I mean? It's strangely absent.
Well, I've been thinking about that during this whole thing on Iran, and I'm like, well, why are we pushing solar and wind there? America can't have any nuclear energy plants here, so I'm thinking what this fellow says about that.
We'll ask him. Thank you, Marilyn. Dr. Kim, what do you think? Is that anything that you'll be to? Bob, go ahead.
Marilyn, there actually are several plants that are in the process and will be coming online in the years to come, but there are difficulties in building new facilities here in the United States. So I want to address just the first part of your question. There has recently been commentary from several leading environmentalists actually talking about the need to develop nuclear energy, because when they're looking at what it's going to take to bridge us in theory to get us to that next level of resource usage, they realize that from a scalability standpoint, nuclear provides the best option immediately to reduce emissions and provide uninterrupted electricity. So this is a bit of a change that had not been said before.
You've got the biggest public relations obstacle in the world to overcome, though, when it comes to nuclear, don't you?
Look, there's challenges. There's no question. But when you hear some of the leading environmentalists who several years ago had been dead set against this, now saying, look, I'm kind of changing my process, my thoughts here a little bit. At least it's worthy of paying attention to. But building a nuclear facility is fraught with regulatory and cost issues here in the United States. It makes it very expensive. And when we're talking about a decentralized type of utility situation, somebody's got to be assured of getting a return on that investment, too.
Dr. Kim, what do you think?
I think I agree with Bob. And I think I want to encourage your listeners as well that this issue of nuclear energy, and particularly what's going on in Iran, will be addressed at the conference itself. Because one of the panels at the conference will be the geopolitics of energy and how global politics impacts. And as we know from Iran, if sanctions are lifted for Iran, that's going to actually impact the global oil market, because all of a sudden Iranian oil will be available.
We'll have even more oil on the market, which has the potential for continuing to depress prices unless demand is continuing to increase correspondingly.
Absolutely. And another example of how nuclear is impacting a global market is, let's look at Japan, for example. As you know, in 2011, there was the Fukushima accident as a result of the tsunami. Japan used to be the third largest nuclear power producer in the world. And all of a sudden, when you have 48 nuclear reactors shut down, all of that is picked up by, right now, LNG, natural gas. And that dramatically increased the demand for natural gas in the world, and that dramatically impacted how markets and the geopolitics of this played out. And so, one of the speakers will be talking about Japan and what's going on in Japan, and how a developed economy all of a sudden went from producing about a quarter of its energy from nuclear power, all of a sudden dramatically go down to 1% in nuclear power, and then all of it being picked up by natural gas.
Which is very expensive, because they pay 3 to 4 times more for MCF when you are importing LNG versus natural gas here in this country.
Go ahead, John.
What's MCF?
That's the measurement for actual natural gas.
Okay, gotcha. Just trying to get the alphabet
It's
straight
not
here.
a rapper's acronym.
This is MCF. Now, is it? Am I not mistaken that we have certain policy limitations on the sale of LNG overseas from the U.S.? Is that right? Or I understand that was something that was difficult to export.
Well, first, there are facilities in the process of being built in the country on the Gulf and on the East Coast to be able to export LNG. But there's a big debate in this country because we right now are awash in natural gas. One of the concerns is we've got cheap natural gas, which is giving us advantages industrially and for, again, the bridge, converting from coal. It's put a lot of pressure on coal because gas has become very competitive with coal. So you see a lot of facilities by requirements and by economics converting from coal over to natural gas usage. Everybody agrees that it's not a perfect solution, but the emissions from natural gas are far better than what comes out of a coal-fired plant. So one of our concerns here is if we start exporting a lot of LNG and our industrial base is growing and our usage of natural gas is growing, then we could start to see prices rise. And then what's the impact on us from an industrial standpoint and cost standpoint? So there's all these give and takes, and that's one of the things Dr. Kim was talking about in terms of this conference is these are the kind of discussions that we're going to be having to give people the insight into this.
And perhaps if I could throw in a question before we take our break, when all is said and done, who's going to be in charge of all this? I mean,
me.
Okay.
So, me and Dr. Kim, we're doing this.
Okay.
It's our game.
Well, there you
it's our
go.
ball. We'll go home if you don't want to play.
We're going to take a break. No, now that problem's solved, the show's over. Thanks so much for joining us. Now, we'll be right back. Darlene, if you don't mind holding, we'll take a quick break and get your call. And we have two lines open at 721-1290. Hey, that familiar drumming on the desk means that Bob Seidenschwartz is in the house. You just can't help it, Kat. It's all right.
Just
Don't worry
flows,
about it.
Peter. Just flows.
721-1290 is our number. That's John King over there. I'm Peter Christian, Bob Seidenschwartz, and joining us also in the studio, the director of the Mansfield Center on the University of Montana campus, Dr. Abraham Kim. And we've been waiting a long time to hear from Darlene. First of all, thank you for holding and your patience. How can we help you?
Well, thank you for taking my call. This sounds like a wonderful seminar. Would you please tell us how to register? And then throughout the program, would you please repeat the place, time, and date? And thank you.
Okay. Well, thanks, Darlene. Well, keeping us on track there is Darlene, so we appreciate that. So,
Well, thank you for your call, Darlene. The best way to sign up for our conference is to go to our website, mansfieldconference.org. And once you get onto that site, you'll see all the agendas and also a button for registration. And if you click on that registration, you can sign up for various panels and various speakers you would like to listen to. And I forgot to mention the dates of our conference,
Yes,
which is
please, yeah.
April 29th and 30th, and it will be on the campus of the University of Montana. And one of the advantages of signing up early is that if you do and you're off campus, you'll get free parking. So
Jump back.
Those of you, as those of you who are aware of the difficulties of parking on the campus, that's a real treasure.
Dr. Kim, I can see it now. People will register for the conference and say, "I get free parking. I'm going to go to the U now." The conference? What conference? No, I'm just kidding. So, go ahead, John.
Is there a cost to register?
It is free and open to the public. And
Wonderful.
so, as all of our Mansfield conferences have been in the past, it is for the purpose of promoting public education. And so we want it to be available to our audience and our community. And so just to remind you, mansfieldconference.org is the place to sign up.
All right, perfect. Now, I just handed you a sheet a minute ago from an organization that is obviously very left-leaning. They are very pro alternative energy, very anti-coal and natural and gas and things like that. So, and the headline is that China has a plan in place to try to reduce the amount of coal usage over the next several years because so many people are dying and there's such horrible environmental degradation in that country because of their extensive use of coal. Now, it'd be a good thing for China if they did that because people would be healthier. But it might be a bad thing for the West, for Montana, Wyoming, coal producers in North Dakota, wherever that ship that coal over to China. So you have this balance going on where, and I'm wondering, will that be addressed in the conference of how Some people improving themselves might cause a downturn in markets for other countries, and how all that is going to be addressed.
Yes, we are going to be having representatives from China to talk about their national energy policy and the outlook for their country. And, this conference will be about addressing how these different governments and different organizations are addressing the outlook for their specific countries. And all these Asian countries recognize that they need to address environmental concerns as well. And there is a shift, not only in China. I know China is trying to shift by 2020 that 15% of their energy portfolio will be coming from non-polluting renewable type energy sources. But not only China, but Korea. Korea implemented laws to shift to 10% of their portfolio.
Now, are we talking South Korea?
South Korea.
Okay.
Yes, South Korea.
Thank you.
And Japan as well. And so all these countries are, not only these developed countries and developing countries, but other countries around the world are shifting to balance their energy portfolio to include renewables into their production to address environmental concerns.
Yeah, I think North Korea runs on rainbows and good wishes from the
Dennis Rodman.
Right. So anyway, I wanted to ask you about energy and futurism. Will there be a futurist at the conference discussing the next developments of energy and what the future might hold?
Yes, there will be. In fact, one of our speakers is one of leading thinker in terms of political risk and looking into the future of geopolitical issues that might erupt over the horizon. And his name is
interesting term, erupt.
Yeah, erupt or blow up or emerge.
Develop.
Develop.
Yeah.
His name is Dr. Tom Barnett, and in fact, he's a very well-known scholar of political science, and he'll be coming and talking about what is the future of U.S. energy leadership look like. As many of you know, 2020, 2025 is a milestone year for the United States where it will make that transition from net importer to net exporter of energy. And that has implications across the board in terms of global economics, geopolitics, really across the board. And what we've asked him to do is to think about 4 possible scenarios of how U.S. leadership in the global energy market looks like in the next 5, 10, 20 years.
And how does America stay in the forefront?
Exactly. And he's going to be looking at best case scenario, worst case scenario, and hybrids in between. And that will be our lunchtime speaker. So,
when you were mentioning about coal and Asia, one of the interesting concepts, and we'll have, again, discussion about this at the conference, is it may actually take more energy over the next 10 to 15 to 20 years to produce many of the alternative types of energy that we're going to and hope to transition into. So there could be a period of time where energy usage actually increases across the board as we're going through this transition.
And with that, we're going to take a quick break. Come right back. We have all 3 lines open, if you have very rare. 721-1290 is our number. Dr. Abraham Kim joining us, director of the Mansfield Center. Matt Olson also is here with us. And we'd love to have you give us a call this morning. We will be right back. All right, we're back on Talkback. 721-1290 is our number. Dr. Abraham Kim joining us this morning, director of the Mansfield Center. And, of course, Bob Seidenschwartz. And we have other things going on with the Montana World Affairs Council, right,
Yeah,
Bob?
This is a busy month. Tomorrow at 12 o'clock at the Florence Building in the governor's room, Dr. Richard Erb, Dick Erb, will be speaking. Dick is former director for the International Monetary Fund from 84 to 94. Now retired with his wife Joanna, and they're up in Moise. And Dick's been on the show before, so he's going to prepare a very interesting summary of where we kind of are right now economically on a global basis and domestically. So lunch is going to be served. It is $20 for members of the council, $25 for non-members. You can still come if you don't want to order lunch, but here's an opportunity to get some insight from a very well-connected, sophisticated individual.
Excellent. Okay, go ahead, John.
Speaking of sophistication, there's anything I know about Missoulians, it's that they love herb, so that should go over well. I wanted to ask you guys, because we hear a lot about all these foreign countries and the big energy companies, but how much of this is going to be relevant to Montanans? How much of this is going to impact the daily life of people that live here?
Yes, this conference will be very much relevant to our local people because not only will we be covering global issues related to energy and national issues, but also what does it mean for us here in Montana? Right. And so some important issues that many of us are watching regularly and concerned about are related to energy and how it impacts economic development here in the state, issues related to utilities, issues related to transportation, issues related to just the technological developments that are occurring in our state related to energy, not only in the natural resource arena, but also in the renewable arena. And so this will be an opportunity to showcase and highlight the important work that's going on here locally, not only at the University of Montana, but we'll be representing many different universities. So MSU will be here, Montana Tech,
right.
MSU
Montana
Billings.
School of Technology
Yes,
will also have representation.
Absolutely.
Right.
So it'll be very relevant to our local people.
I know you touched on this just a little bit, but when you talked about the various governmental agencies that are going to be represented at the conference, I think it would be really interesting for people to note representatives from Japan, China, Korea, I'm imagining, is that right?
Yes.
And of course the United States.
Yes.
And so I'm really anxiously looking forward to hearing those governmental agencies sit down together at a table and talk about this from the perspective of their various governments and how they're seeing all this. I mean, the market aside, these are the geopolitical folks that really make the world go. And so I'm fascinated to hear what they have to say.
Yes, not only government officials, but sitting next to business people, sitting next to technologists and academics and scientists who are doing covering energy from another perspective. So really the purpose of this conference has been from the beginning to be interdisciplinary and multi-sectoral in terms of when you bring these people with different perspective that deal with these energy issues on a daily basis from a different part of the energy question, and you bring them all together.
And sparks could fly, right?
Sparks will fly, and there will be a lot of heat. But what's
But it'll be non-emitting. It'll be reducing our carbon footprint with that heat, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. But the point is when you bring this diverse group together to have this conversation, there will be learning. Yes, there will be debate,
right.
But they will be learning and there will be growing and understanding, not necessarily agreement all the time. And we don't anticipate people coming away having a consensus around the question of energy, but at least people will have an understanding of where the different stakeholders stand on these issues.
Dr. Kim, could you also give a little descriptive of the Leadership Symposium in terms of what the objective of that is, in terms of bringing some of these people together to discuss some of these different viewpoints later?
Yes. So the purpose of these bringing together these leaders is to bring some of the folks that shape energy, our energy questions globally. And so not only nationally, but locally. And we want to have a conversation of how where the outside world
right.
impacts us here
right.
at the state level. And so the reason why we're bringing these leaders together is because we want to have some of these decision makers, right, to have this conversation and for the audience and our community to listen in.
Right.
I just wanted to make sure, too, that during these sessions where it is appropriate, where the public can stand up and say, I have a question for so-and-so, I have a question for so-and-so, is that going to be allowed? Absolutely.
All of our sessions will have a Q&A session where we'll have an opportunity to question the leaders and submit questions to the panelists. Okay, we're going to take a little break, come right back. This is our last. It's a 1-minute timeout, and we'll come right back. And 721-1290 is our number, 1-800-568-5309. We'll be back in 60 seconds. Hey, we're back on Talkback. 721-1290 is our number, 1-800-568-5309. Montana World Affairs Council on the radio. Dr. Abraham Kim, the director, kind enough to spend an hour and a half with us this morning. So, John, go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to go back to something that was mentioned earlier about the future. And I think it was Bob who had mentioned, actually, no, it was Abraham, that mentioned that in about by 2020 or 2025, America is going to be a net exporter of energy. And my questions are, what's leading up to that? Why is it going to take so long from now, 10 more years? What is in transition in America that's bringing us to that point? Is it simply the fracking revolution or what? What's pushing us to that 2025 date?
Well, first and foremost, it is the advancement in technology and the extraction of oil and gas. The hydraulic fracking revolution has certainly contributed to, in a large way, the availability of these resources, tidal, shale gas, and so forth. And United States is one of the richest. Has the most of much of these natural resources, and so
we also have the capability of going after them.
Yes,
with environmental conditions and that sort of thing, the regulatory agencies of the government. But if the market were able to do whatever, we have, as you say, it's not an infinite supply, but it is there for us to get because it's ours, right?
Yes, it is available, and the question is how quickly these resources will be extracted and acquired and exported, and so that's a major driver.
Yeah, when people also hear we will become the leading exporter of energy, it's not just oil and gas; it's the byproducts that derive from actual oil or natural gas too. So the United States right now, by some, may be considered not even having to get to 2025 to be the leader. But I also caution, too, that what you look at today in terms of, as an example, when you frack a well, the depletion rates are extremely high. So in that first year, you may be down 40, 50% in terms of what future. But one thing that has driven the U.S. really is our leadership in innovation and technology. So even if oil stayed down around $40, that's very detrimental to a lot of oil exporters. I suspect in the United States, we will continue to make advancements in efficiency, which will make it cost effective for us. And that really is the key for United States leadership going forward.
Dr. Kim, did you want to respond to that?
No, I think Bob brings up some great points. It's not just about our natural resources. It's about the technological advancements of our country. And we are the leading country in all of these different areas in renewable and conservation efficiencies. And in fact, a lot of our speakers will be addressing some of those issues related to efficiency and how, for example, we'll be having architects and engineers talking about how new buildings are becoming increasingly efficient, and how, because buildings, and in particular, for example, large box stores like Walmart have heavy refrigeration requirements, and how issues related to refrigeration and those kinds of things, efficiency is increasing and growing, and how engineers are working to address those issues. And in terms of cars, we'll be having a speaker talking about electric cars and the future of electric cars, and Tesla, and also I believe Nissan is producing electric cars, and where the future of that is going as well. And battery energy storage. That's an important issue related to energy that we need to address.
When you bring that up, you had mentioned earlier, Bob, that the fact that the related industries that will make those happen, things like copper mining, things like the various precious metals,
rare earth
minerals that are available only in certain areas, some not even in the United States.
Right.
And all those things have to be balanced together in a market where those things are available to make somebody else's technology go.
And this is where some of the discussions about geostrategic issues will start to come into the equation, because if you are developing this type of an economy, you have to make sure you have an uninterrupted supply of the resources necessary to make that transition. And of course, that gets into a lot of, very touchy areas in terms of the geopolitical implications.
Right. And of course, overarching above all that, there's a great deal of tension in the Middle East right now between Iran and Israel and the various countries there. And a lot of that centers around energy, whether it's nuclear energy, whether it's the development and the sale of oil. What is the security of that source remaining available? Because we still use a lot of oil from the Middle East all over the world. And so the security of that source of energy is also got to be something I'm sure you're going to be talking about. Is that right?
No, absolutely. As I mentioned before, geopolitics of energy will be very much a part of this conversation. And as John asked previously about the futurists will be looking at these major tension points within our world: Middle East, Russia, China, areas in Africa. he'll be bringing and looping all of these regions together and how it will be shaping our future, not only from an energy perspective, but how we need to deal with it as the United States on a kind of a global political arena. And so it will be a rich discussion. So,
how is registration going? Do we have an idea of how many advanced registrations you have? Matt is going.
We have about 300 people registered for this. We can accommodate up to about 700. So we've got we've got a lot of space for people.
We're priming the pump right now.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah, okay.
And but there'll be a lot of students coming to this as well. And students don't tend to register, and so we may have 300 register, but a lot more will show up.
Okay, we have exactly 2 minutes left in the program. So if you could go over just the raw materials, if you will, pardon the pun, the energy pun, but tell us the when, the where, the how much, and
sure.
And again, we get free parking if we register. So go ahead.
The conference will be on April 29th and 30th. It will be on the campus of the University of Montana, specifically at the Denison Theater.
Right. Okay.
And the breakout sessions will be at the Business School, which is right across the street from the Denison Theater. And people can register at mansfieldconference.org. And the conference runs for 2 full days, full day on 29th and a day and half a day on the 30th. So it'll be over by the afternoon. And if you sign up, you'll get free parking, and we will, and some of the occasions for the lunches and things, we'll be providing some hors d'oeuvres and things like that. So if you want some free food, there'll be free food as well. So
I also need to mention too, because people will come to this conference, they'll see how well organized, thoughtful it is. But there's 2 people behind the scenes here that have worked tirelessly to put this together, and that is Matt Olson and Dr. Abraham Kim. And a lot of times people don't really understand what has to be done to bring this together to make this of service to the citizens and the state of Montana.
Yeah, real quick, Dr.
We want to thank Dr. Kim and Matt Olson.
I also want to mention that this is a very large conference. We have about 100 speakers from all over the world coming to this, so you can see the magnitude and scale of this. But if you can't make it to the University of Montana on the 29th and 30th of April, then you can watch it online. It will be, the major sessions will be streamed, and you can find more information on it from the website.
And we are completely out of time. All right, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll be back tomorrow for another great edition of Talkback. Thank you, Dr. Kim.